to help us better understand. And community members shared still some opinions and a lot of questions. I think we still have a lot of questions, but I believe that to be the facts of where we are today, as I know them to be.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah.
Can you confirm once again your first name,
I
last
would
name?
be glad to. Corey, C-O-R-E-Y. My last name's Chappell, C-H-A-P-P-E-L-L. And I'm here in Montebello District 5. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. So that's the facts. Any facts that I've left out? Go ahead.
I think that one of the biggest parts is in 2021, they were emailing HCD, and specifically in these emails, they indicate that the information that the city of Montebello provided was not sufficient due to the fact that one of the issues was, since it's a land deed, it has to be notary and stamped, and it doesn't have a stamp. Out of the 3 pages, they only produced 2 of the pages. On the second page, so page 1 and page 3. On page 2 is the actual exemption stating that it needs to remain an open space and a golf space, which they failed to have.
I think we need to walk you back. What he's referring to is the agreement where that land came into possession of the city, and that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, so the Bicknell agreement came in 2 parts. It was a contingent setup. So if at any time we were not to keep it for open space and recreational use, then it's supposed to revert back to the land, specifically the Bicknell Park area. And if you pull up the Bicknell Park area on the LA Assessor's Office, you can see that, you know, they're going to be encroaching on that land. Now, after they did the vote, Raul Alvarez, the city manager, came up to me directly, and I had witnesses that said he will not listen and he's not going to change his opinion, nor will he allow staff to work on any new parcels until the next 7th cycle, which is not even going to be for a year from now. The problem that we're facing is the deed restrictions clearly indicate you're not to have any type of houses on there. So go ahead.
I think the main concern essentially here is that we're in the 13th hour at this point in time, that everything was supposed to have already been approved and passed. By the first time though that it came to council for the vote, for it to pass, I don't know the exact first time, because they said it was previous and this was like a second reading of it. When it was tabled was at the time of the second reading. Our understanding is in order to remain compliant with HCD housing element, that it needs to be passed yesterday, and that we're just simply out of time. So the suggestion by the city is, let's get it passed as is. We'll try and put in some protections so that in the next cycle, we can try to reallocate units and not utilize those parcels. I asked what their view is of removing inventory once it's been rezoned. I think that that's an unknown at this point in time. But the biggest concern that I'm hearing from residents is once it's rezoned, it's harder to protect than it is to not rezone it from the get-go. And the concern I'm hearing from the city is if we don't rezone it now, we fall out of compliance, and then builder's remedy can kick in, and that opens a whole nother ball of worms or can of worms.
And to be clear, like none of the residents want to come out of compliance. That's not what we're fighting for. We're not trying to say, hey, we don't want to meet these numbers. We gave them even suggestions. I live off in District 3. My name is Will Silvera, and I live off of Beverly Boulevard. The last name is C as in Charlie, E-R, V as in Victor, E-R-A. And there's multiple lots that are vacant that have not been upzoned, and it's considered a corridor. If you were to upzone it to 5 stories, we would then meet the qualifications of the 1,240 units with the 20% max, so we can still comply. The other thing is Washington Boulevard in Greenwood is going to be close enough to deal with SB 79. They're not counting that. That comes into effect, I believe, June 1st. Once you do that, each parcel goes from 60 units a parcel to 120 units a parcel. So once it goes through those parcel limits, you're not going to have a 20% at 60 units. You're going to have a 20% of very low and low income thresholds that would technically fall within the areas. We were also wishing to push for Whittier Boulevard to be upzoned to 7 stories. Now, for safety wise, the ladder truck on City of Montebello can go up to 7 feet. It's 110 feet, but because of the angle that they have to put it on, it automatically loses 7 feet. Each story is 10 feet high. So we are not like trying to be a-holes about this. However, what our concern is, the deed is very explicit, and like I told you guys, I can email it to you, we highlighted it, and it's all ready to go. And as far as the council meeting goes, Linda Nicholas' daughter was the mayor at the time, Kimberly Ann Cawthorn. And when they passed it, the staff and the advisors were forcing the council to push it through so they wouldn't come out of compliance. When the council at that time, I could send you the video as well and the hyperlinks and everything. Afterwards, when Councilwoman Scarlett Peralta, David Torres tried to ask for a 2-week extension because they go, we don't even know where all of these marks are. On the same video, people asked, why is the golf course mixed in there? And they said, well, that's for just in case, but we don't have it for sure there. But that night it passed. Come December of 2022, they go out to RFP on Planet Bids. In Planet Bids, they specifically ask in the questions, and we'll forward that to you as well, the 15.5 acres that you're planning on developing, has there been any outreach? The answer from the city was no, there has not been. When they ask them, are you guys going to sell the land? How do you want to develop? That's up to council. So it was incomplete. But again, I'm going to definitely stress that the elements that HCD asked for the exemption is on page 19, and it specifically states that if it is deed restricted and is not done by the city, that it is an exemption. On the emails from 2021 between HCD and Joe Palumbi, they clearly state if you have these, yes, it can be used as an exemption. Thank you.
Right. And here's those particular parts of the land regarding, came to the city in 2 ways. So 19 acres via a quick deed, and the city purchased those, paid for them, bond paid for them, the city can do with those what they want. Then there was an additional 16 acres that was conveyed to the city with expressed written direction that it's to be used for recreational purposes only, or reverted back to the gifting family. And what I was met with from the city was, well, we paid for these, and so now all rights for the other city, the selling family are gone, they don't matter. But I think that they're confusing the fact that we purchased some of the acreage, but some of it was gifted to us for specifically recreational purposes.
And just so that you know, on those that she's talking about, it's going to be item number 1024, 1025, and the submission that the city gave to the state is 1026, completely different products. And they're actually separated purposely, and they're registered at the county registrar's office.
Hi, my name is Linda Nicholas, Nicklas. The city purchased the golf site for $123,000. The Bignell family bequeathed the other side for the community's use. They wanted us to have green space. It was never to be built on, encroached in any form. So I want you to think about this. 15 acres. They're gonna take 2.5 acres to supposedly make a park out of there. So now we're down to 12.5 acres that if they ever zone it and build on. So they wanna put 800 houses on 12.5 acres. Up the hill at Metro Heights, they're building 1,200 units, 400 acres, 400, not 12.5 acres, 400 acres. Do you see why our concern is? Now, if they go up 7 stories, which is what they'll have to do to accommodate the amount that they want. That's why on the 26th of March, we had a huge, strong presence of the Armenian community. They were outraged that they would build that because they would literally block the monument. They've given them all kinds of promises, but there have been a rendering that shows that if they did that, they would be blocking the monument. And
From the Garfield viewpoint.
yes, and my idea is, why would they put, and then Garfield's very trafficky. Across the street is a church and a school, an elementary school. Down the street, there's community businesses. There's a lot of apartments on Garfield. There's a lot of traffic as it is.
And Topgolf.
And Topgolf, exactly, Topgolf.
And my understanding is they actually were zoning it for 1,240 units, but the state was only giving them credit for 800 units.
So just
I'm,
go back to the amount.
Yeah. I'm Cindy Farber. I'm with the Lions Club of Montebello, who built the Scout House up there at Bicknell Park in 1951. It's 75 years old, and there have been hundreds and hundreds of youths using that Scout hut and becoming Eagle Scouts, Girl Scout, Gold Award ladies, and we have also our Leo Club with our junior high, high school, and college kids utilizing the resources up there. It's the only safe place that children can camp out. It's a secure compound. The city helped us build the campfire, so they're making s'mores and cooking their dinner over the open fire, learning how to build a fire with fire safety. And it's been a gem of a place. And we've been fighting this now for many, many years. Been involved since Bill Molinari did a redo of it, and our Lions Club just replaced all the flooring. If they build all of the houses that they're planning to, it's not gonna even be an urban camping experience. It's gonna be a peekaboo neighborhood thing, and I think it's not as safe now with people knowing our youths are camping overnight in that area. So I was told it was gonna be open space. I've been told that here and there, since 2007. But, we're fighting for this area and for our heritage and our legacy in Montebello. 75 years is sitting up there.
Yvette, why don't you go around.
I'd rather Alexandra and I'll follow her.
And folks, I have to leave, I have an oversight committee meeting at Yohan College, but I'll stay in touch with all of you and then we'll continue this.
Thank you.
Fred, would you please tell our senator, we need him to advocate for us and help us with the state to remedy this?
And
Yeah,
the
we'll
big reason why
definitely.
she's bringing this up is we are being told there's allegations and rumors that somebody that's an elected official above a council is putting pressure on that they must pass this as is. And that's not okay with us,
Yeah.
because, you know, this is our only green space. If
Well, we
you-
definitely have to go to the governor's office to see what he's allocated for this area. I think that's where.
Well, that might change too.
5,342 if I remember right.
Yes.
I think it's 5138.
Huh?
I thought it was
Thank you, thank you.
5138.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Briseño, and I live in District 1. And I just want to start off by saying, repeating what Corey said, the land was gifted to the residents. And the grantor stipulated that it remain green space for the residents. If you take this land, if you develop it, the way I see it, you're stealing from the residents. Okay, that's one issue. Now, I tell you what's gonna happen because I know Montebello, I lived here long enough and I know what's gonna happen. It's not gonna go out to bid. This contract is gonna be given to a developer to build, right? And then because it's on the golf course, there's been a contractor that's been issued all the rights to the food and beverage on the golf course. So then if you build, I don't know if they're gonna build 8 buildings, and if they have commercial, if they have restaurants, let's say there's gonna be 8 restaurants, he's gonna have all the rights to the food and beverage. So no private business is gonna be crazy enough to go in there and say, like an Applebee's, oh, I'd like to rent from you. Well, you'll have to give all the food and beverage to our contractor on the golf course. Nobody in their right mind is gonna go in there and operate those businesses. So you know what? We're gonna have to issue contracts, operating contracts to operate all those restaurants, and probably operating contracts to charge the rent for all the residents. And so what I'm trying to say is that, you know, then we're gonna subject residents to the bond debt for that, okay? So we've subjected residents to do bond debt, take out bond debt for the 2 hotels, hotel number 1, hotel number 2. This is, you know, property on the golf course. Bond debt for the golf course, we had to redo the golf course. All of that bonded on the residents for the same area. Bond debt for the Top Golf, also on the golf course. And then now more bond debt, they're gonna subject us to more for this real estate development. It's not fair to the other districts. It's stealing our land that was meant for residents. And that whole complex is not even welcoming to residents. It's supposed to be for residents. When you pass by, a resident has no idea that it was meant for them. It looks very exclusive. It looks like for the rich people that play golf. There's nothing inviting. This is not right. And you know, and then here's the worst insult, right? We take on all this bond debt while our streets are full of potholes, our cities in a severely dilapidated state. And we have these businesses, right? You would think they turn a profit. Well, they don't turn a profit. None of them ever give us anything to the general fund. They take from it, and they take from it, and they take from it. And that's why Montebello is in the condition that it is, okay? So, and the only parties that make money are the people the contractors. They're the only ones that make money. Thousands, right? Ridiculous. If you would see how much how much a hotel operator makes, is probably like a little over 100,000. We pay 700,000 just to operate one hotel. So just multiply that by many times. So this is land stealing, and it's not right. And I think residents should be outraged. And I think if you live in District 5, 4, 3, you should be outraged. This should not happen. It should not happen. So let's work some other way. Let's ask the governor or HCD to reduce our mandate to maybe like 300 less homes or whatever. But this is ridiculous. I'm done.
You guys, you said you were next.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it very simple. I understand that the agreement of the willing of the property to the city was it not given to the state? That's how I understand it. And so I suggest that we turn over that document to the state, because it probably would show, or they may, after review, say, I'm sorry, this land is exempt from putting any housing there. And I would say submitting that to the state, putting everything on hold, and I'm sure the state would put it on hold until after their review. And let the state be the one to tell us, after reviewing the document, is it exempt or is it not exempt? And then if it's not exempt, I'm sure they would work with us to give the time that is needed for staff to then identify other parcels to then meet that criteria. And then at the same time, just like everyone's saying, maybe we can also ask to have our numbers lowered. You know? So I just think that that's the step that we should take, and that we should not move forward on anything based upon the fact that I don't think the state has the documentation it needs, or wasn't given the documentation it needed to see that the land may be exempt from being rezoned. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Yvette, Y-V-E-T-T-E. The last name is F-I-M-B-R-E-S, and I'm District 2. The district that the property is in.
Okay, so we did receive in our last meeting with the city staff from Joe Palumbi that he had reached out to the state requesting exemption for these parcels back in 2021 and was met with they're not exempt. In reviewing what was sent though, we realized that the state did not have all of the information or the full deed or anything, which is what Will was saying at the beginning. HCD has been sent the full deed at this point and has been asked the question, now that we have provided to you the verbiage and the language, can you please confirm what the process would be and if we can maintain compliance while you're re-evaluating and reviewing this? Because the last thing we want to do is fall into this builder's remedy category. When I had asked before about putting it on hold and trying to just reallocate those 317 shortfall, they said that the minute that, if it doesn't pass, that we are out of compliance and builder's remedy takes effect immediately. So the biggest question I ask is, does this open an avenue where we could have it reevaluated and not be out of compliance while we're figuring this out? And I asked if we could please have that answer before city council goes to vote on Wednesday. So that has been asked, it has been provided.
That's where we need your help.
Yeah.
And real quick, I would like to add, I'm sorry, the HCD has been provided the documents, but not through the city council nor through the city staff. It was by us residents that have been reaching out, contacting them, and being in communication with Reed Miller.
That night,
Reed Miller.
R-E-I-D, Miller with HCD, and also Fidel Herrera.
May I ask a question? Corey, so You did send that
I
in.
did.
They have not responded back to say.
I sent it today,
Oh,
and
today.
Reed was out of the office today.
Okay.
It forwarded me somebody else to contact, Fidel Herrera, and I had already contacted both of them because the previous week when I was in touch with Reed, he was, or she was out, I don't know who, if they're, and they had provided Fidel's information as well, so I've just been including both of them on all correspondence at this point in time. And they have been responding. I've gotten emails back from them where they specified that my very first question I asked was pertaining to those parcels, asking about the deed restriction, but also about the new protections for the Armenian Martyrs Monument, because it did become a California State Historic Site and protected landmark after they approved that area to be part of the inventory. So I guess my questions for you would be, how can you help us confirm before council's meeting on Wednesday whether or not a reevaluation process would put a hold or a stop to any sort of builder's remedy while the state is evaluating whether or not this parcel is even feasible for being part of our inventory? Or if council votes not to rezone, if we immediately fall into builder's remedy regardless of whether or not the state's reevaluating things? That would be my question.
We're afraid of falling out of compliance, cause they told us, oh, if you do this, then there's penalties, and then they can build on it, and there's certain areas that any builder can go in and just, do what they want.
I will
basically.
say, I'm in District 5, and I know that my neighbors have fought long and hard against some projects that if we fall out of compliance would hurt our district. So I'm happy to go to battle and fight for District 2 spaces. I'm trying my hardest, but not at the detriment for the spaces that my neighbors have fought long and hard to protect.
I'm from District 5, and I'm fighting for this open space.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an unreasonable ask to then allow the state to first review and give us an answer before council moves forward in any way. I feel that it should be tabled until we get an answer from the state.
Once this is passed, is to be able to rezone, it's all over but the crying. We won't be able to fight that.
And
We
that's.
we won't go down
I mean,
standing, but.
we can do an injunction and then it becomes a court matter, but again, you're asking a working community to come up with money to go up against a municipality.
Well, here's the other real question is that hasn't been answered that I would also like to pose is, if council does rezone and they say, we're gonna rezone, but you don't really have to build there, we're not gonna open it up for building, we're not gonna build there, we're gonna reallocate in the next cycle, what is the probability that the state is like, oh, you just wanna pull those out of inventory? No worries, yeah, just move them in the next cycle.
And if it's that easy, why won't they allow us to do it now?
And that's the other, I think, concern of neighbors is not only was, the parcels approved back in 2022 when the state approved the things, but also the city filed for an extension in 2025 and was granted till this year. So I'm not sure why neighbors were not actively involved in this prior to when it went to the council vote in March. I know that they talked about engaging us and they have a list of meetings, but it was never specifically about these parcels, which is what, the rest of it, we understand, we've got to take on some of the housing, we get it. We're not fighting most of it, it's just these particular parcels that have the historic and, community, they don't want it to be built on. We don't want it.
And once it's rezoned, like I said, once they rezone, what's to have a developer come and say, here, I've got plans to do this. It's rezoned, I can do this. Okay, they can say, well, no, yay, and they can turn around and sue the city, well, hey, you rezoned it for development, here's a project.
Pockets to sue the city.
And there are some concerns regarding, we're gonna have a new governor starting next year, and there are some concerns regarding what may change between what local has authority on now and what state's going to take over in the future. So if it is rezoned this year, what's to say we have any say next year? That's the other concern. I don't wanna take your time.
That's okay, because I have to leave to go to another meeting regarding the same issue with the city council member in District 2. My name is Vicky Castro. I, take the same stance as everyone else here. I am totally opposed to them building on the golf course. I live near there, the traffic is horrible. You have 2 freeway exits from the 60 that get off right there. They've also closed off Finley. We have to go all around town just to get home. The congestion is ridiculous. For Monterey Park as well as Montebello at that Garfield Villacampo intersection, it's terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm totally opposed, and I don't trust the city council. If we rezone, I don't trust them to undo the rezoning. And that is a big worry, because they keep on stabbing us in the back, so that's my opinion. Thank you.
So, my ask of Assembly, Member Gonzalez is that they also send correspondence to HCD in support of us residents, asking for the state to review the documents and not,
Impose builder's revenue.
yes.
Just give us the time, let them review it, say pause everything, say, let's pause it, that we're not out of compliance, let them review this. If they review all the documents, it's very clear, this isn't a regular piece of property. This was bequeathed to the city, and it's very specific. If you do anything other than what is for the community, it reverts back to the heirs. All that property goes back to them. So this is totally different. This is Montebello's property. It's the community's property. So it's not the city halls, like, that's our, no. This is the community's property. And that's how the Bicknell family wanted it. They bought the site for the golf course that was $123,000 back then. They paid for that. Across the way is where they did the Bicknell Park, so the community would have someplace to play. Adults could play golf, kids could play in the park. That's what they wanted, green space.
Just one little tidbit too, is that Montebello has a very, very low percentage of open space in the first place.
Yeah,
One of the lowest around.
exactly.
There was a study conducted in 2022, it's called the Edison Trails Study, that was partnered by the city of Montebello and I think SoCal Edison and in that study, the city was recognized as being deficient in walking trails and green spaces.
So, I mean, so as you can tell, most of us already understand the rules and what we're up against. So, sorry, but I know Bill hasn't got to go. I apologize, Bill.
Sorry, go ahead, finish your.
So hopefully you can see we're not against the RENA numbers itself, just trying to protect it. And we've been willing to give them other sites and such. And the reason why we were told that some of the issues, why they were declined, because that was from the planning director, Joe Plumby, that the state denied them. But now we're hearing, well, yeah, you offered the DMV and you offered state property. Of course they're gonna deny you. You can't do that. So.
My concern is,
Introduce yourself, though.
how much is enough? How much housing do we have to get shoved down our throats by these politicians in Sacramento? I mean, it's just becoming neglect. Every place that there's an open space, they want to put low-income housing, more housing, more housing. There's not a good fix to this problem. I feel as though Montebello's going to get screwed one way or the other. And it's a shame, because again, we're going to go back to the same situation. They're shoving housing down our throats. They want to put it everywhere. And you heard the concerns from the residents. I mean, when is enough enough? I don't know how much you can convey, but there's some pretty substantial information here that the residents have dug up and presented. But again, it's tough because we don't want to come out of compliance. But if we don't do this, the state's going to put us out of compliance. Then builder's remorse is going to come in, and then we can have a builder in here doing whatever he wants. So where does it end? Where does it end? And it's not you, okay? But those are my concerns. Where's going to be the next spot? That they're going to want to put another high rise in. So those are my concerns. I hope you can, convey the message from all of us here, because we all care about the city immensely, and we don't wanna see it ruined. You know, traffic is horrendous. Parking, where's all these people gonna park their cars? You know, that's another thing. You heard the people that live over there in District 1. Parking's already, parking's an issue and traffic's an issue coming off the 60. So, you know, we're gonna have another issue down here in South Montebello with the train coming through here before long. So, you know, when is enough enough?
But San Marino and Palos Verdes Estates take some of the low-income housing requirements. They have zero.
Well, would you mention the cities?
Sorry.
The cities that are not as, they weren't imposed as many as we were, and like, was it San Marino?
I believe that was Vivian Romero that had the information as like far as Cerritos, Reno numbers was like 100, you were saying?
Yeah.
You know how big Cerritos is?
Yeah.
So we're getting dumped on.
So before we go on, Bill, you didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, Bill Pulisel.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Come on. Paolissl. And I'm District 5.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Vivian, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about what I'm doing? What am I saying?
You introduce yourself and then give your opinion, because we set the precedence of what is actually the issue at large here.
Oh, okay. Yes, my name is Vivian Romero.
Former mayor.
Former mayor, yes, and city councilwoman. Well, I'm here just to probably echo what some of our residents and constituents are also saying. I don't think that the golf course is a very viable location. I think they should have looked for someplace else. There's so many, and I brought this up at City Hall, there's so many other possibilities, I believe, that could have replaced this location. I agree with the traffic situation. I think it's gonna be really detrimental to that neighborhood. All of it. In the past, we already cut off one of the short streets that used to go down and cut across over to Beverly behind one of the fire stations there. That's no longer an access point. And so with the Top Golf being there now, and supposedly a new hotel's gonna go up there again, I don't know what we're gonna do with transportation in that whole radius. So that's problematic. I do believe that staff could have looked into another potential site to replace that site. Perhaps they didn't. I get it. There's a lot of EIR and environmental research that needs to be done, but I do believe that we could find another location to put this housing on. So I also offered up, I don't know about whether or not it's fully contaminated. There's a site that's on Montebello Boulevard adjacent to the old Costco site. The city owns it. I don't know if they looked at that property as a potential opportunity site. It begs the question, because we've had other places built where there was contamination or brownfields, and I don't even know that they were properly even ever mitigated along the riverbed there recently. So I'm just kind of shocked that they're choosing the golf course as a location. At any rate, I really don't support it, and I think that yes, if we were to fall out of compliance, what is the time frame, right? We don't know that from the day that we fall out of compliance, immediately these fines are gonna be issued to the city, for how long, and at one point the builder's remedy would then be mandated upon the city. So those are questions that are unanswered. I mean, we're sort of taking the city at their word, but we know sometimes there's a narrative that is just kind of regurgitated throughout and reverberating, and sometimes we don't know what's fact and what's fiction, so.
Sebastian, next question. So the city offers up their parcels to the state to qualify, correct?
So, you're talking about when it comes to rezoning and meeting
Right,
RENA
right,
numbers.
to make these numbers
So
for
the
the
RENA
housing.
numbers come from the Southern California Association of Government, so that, I think they help determine the number that's allocated for each municipality.
Oh, okay.
And then the city, because we wanted to keep control or housing land use decisions with the local entity, so that the city then determines where they're gonna rezone or where they're gonna put that housing. And that comes into, then it goes to the state to see, okay, you've met your.
So my question is, they can reject it, correct? The state?
The state could reject, you're saying the zoning?
Right, well, that
Sign.
specific
Okay.
parcel that the city is offering up.
I can't confirm at the moment, that would be
Okay.
something that probably, but I can't confirm right now.
Okay, okay.
I haven't seen that happen yet, but I can't confirm.
We were definitely told by our city, that some sites had been proposed that were rejected by the state, that there was a lot of back and forth, which we don't have all.
They wouldn't tell us
records of
any
yet.
locations.
And they could not confirm for us which sites had been denied by the state, they didn't have that information. Each CD did respond to me though, Vivian, to say that builder's remedy takes effect immediately upon non-compliance. That's something that happens immediate.
So
And
that's
then-
where I'm getting confused, because just what Corey said.
How can the state, we're offering up something and they're saying, no, we don't want that, we want this over here. I mean, that's where it gets.
I can't speak to it, I would
Yeah.
have to see why HCD said no to those particular parcels.
We don't know which ones they were.
Um,
Tell us.
So,
and-
oh, yeah, so I'll give my opinion and then you can go to, I'm sorry, but, so when I just came into this, I think these committee members have been great at being a lot more engaged than I have. But, that was our question last week, so what were those parcels? Since you're saying that you've communicated and they've objected, what are the sites? And they're like, well, we've exchanged emails. Well, where are the emails and what does it say? And they could not identify that. If I worked, I mean, I feel like I could answer my boss about what exactly I've offered.
If I
Yeah, and
answered my
so-
boss that way.
So I think it's like, well, what were the sites, right? And, they didn't have that, but they had them somewhere in emails, and we asked, well, send us the emails or send us the site. It's easy to put an Excel sheet together and give us the list of those identified sites. That is like one thing. What we heard was there was a couple things that they may have identified, which may be other state-related facilities. Well, of course, the state is going to refuse because that's their property, right? They wouldn't give up the armory. They're not gonna give up tiny homes, or they did say that tiny homes had been a site that they offered. So there's a lot of like unknowns, and I think that's the speculation, right? It makes us mistrust them. Like, there's no trust because of these things that, oh, it's somewhere, we did it, but we don't have it on us. That's really what's going on, and we just really feel like there should be a little bit more forthcoming and transparency from the city.
And I want to say, if we haven't stated this yet, I want to make sure it's clear. The shortfall identified by each CD, if we do not rezone these parcels, is a total of 317 units out of the 5,000 plus. So we're talking about, you know, a very small percentage of what's been assigned to us. And so I just want to make sure that that number was clear.
And then, next cycle, how many are we gonna have to come up with the next cycle? And we're gonna be right back here in the same room, in the room, again, that's why, when is enough enough?
Vicious
I mean,
cycle, we just keep-
I don't know if you know this, how do they calculate what the city of Montebello has to give?
The SCAG, he just said.
Yeah.
San
Yeah,
Bernardino versus
They
San
haven't
Bernardino
shown the
versus
formulas.
Palos
Yeah.
So I'll give a
Verdes.
very
Yeah, how can
simple,
Cerritos have 100 and we have 8?
so.
Better representatives. Good representatives to
Yeah,
make
good
sure,
representatives.
well, they're different district. I'm not blaming him.
Good lobbyists.
Well, I can say that, you know, I was working on the west side when this came into fruition, reading the numbers. I can't recall the exact assembly bill that kind of authorized this, but this was in 2018, 2019, I believe. However, so what this said was that, or how it was determined was there were cities that were building, for instance, or municipalities that were building a lot of housing, while other cities, particularly, and I'll speak to my experience, I worked on the west side, there were cities on the west side who were massive job centers who were not building. I'll just give a couple quick examples. Santa Monica is a city of about maybe 50, 80,000 people, but it swells to 200,000 people during the day. So that's over 100,000 people that are now commuting on the 10. That creates traffic, bad for the environment, many issues. So cities out in the Inland Empire were built, that's this area. In the Inland Empire, they were building a disproportionate amount of housing compared to the city of Los Angeles and the metro area. That's, like I said, including cities like Santa Monica, Culver City, and Beverly Hills. So Reno was thought of as like, okay, taking multiple factors into consideration. I can't recall all of them, but one of them looking at, okay, like where are the jobs at? Where are people commuting from? Where are they commuting to? And okay, which cities, haven't been building as much? Well, guess what? They're gonna have to build more. They're gonna have to do their share, because if you have Rialto, Rancho, Ontario building a disproportionate amount, they're building a lot of housing, and people are moving out there because they want to be able to afford a home, but now they're commuting, and that's unsustainable in the long run. So the goal was, okay, let's do these RENA numbers, so that way we can kind of mandate for these municipalities to build their fair share of housing. So Montebello, the question is, why does Montebello have, I believe, 5,000? It's 5,000. And Cerritos has 100, or San Marino has effectively very little compared to Montebello. Part of the reason why is, Montebello is a dynamic city. There's a lot of jobs here. It's a higher population. There's a lot happening here in Montebello. And there's the studies have shown that people are commuting into Montebello for work. So building housing is a good thing, effectively.
But we don't have the land space to do it. That's the thing that they don't seem to understand. Montebello doesn't have a lot of open spaces where they get built on.
Yes, they're landlocked.
We're landlocked,
Yeah.
basically. And
We're over
that's why
100-year city.
we have to have big development shopping centers. We don't,
But I was gonna say, just a question, because you brought up Rancho Cucamonga. That's a relatively, in the grand scheme of things, newer developed city or community. So how do you compare those, right? You can't compare Montebello to Rancho Cucamonga.
No.
100 and how many years?
They have all the space in the world out there.
Oh, they do, but
That's where the cows were, they threw out.
the problem was we were building further out and creating longer commutes and creating an unsustainable situation for the environment and commuters. So that's why I mentioned Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario, the Inland Empire, and those areas. Now, first of all, I just want to say thank you all for sharing. The reason why we wanted to come here today, Crystal and I, is just really to hear you all out. We became aware of this last week, and at least for my office, what I'd like to do is, okay, let's meet with constituents, let's hear what they have to say. We pride ourselves on our great relationship that we have with our city partners, as well with our other partners in the state. But before I go to them more formally to have any conversation, or just to find out, hey, what's going on your end, I wanted to come talk to y'all first and hear what y'all had to say. And that way, there are serious questions that need answers. One of those concerns that I can speak to is I'm hearing the builder's remedy mentioned quite a bit. And there's actually more consequences to not passing a rezoning. It is my understanding that Montebello did get an extension to pass rezoning to this year, which brings us to the March meetings that were happening. February 27th, I believe, was the first, and then it going into March. So I believe that there is an urgency to pass, that's on the city's part, to pass before you fall out of compliance. Now, I'm just gonna read off, just so that we're aware, and I only read this off not to scare, not to intimidate, but just so that way you all understand, because it's not just the builder's remedy. So non-compliance results in a few things. Number one, can be the loss of state funds, and this is everything from grant money, Caltrans Sustainable Communities grants, and other affordable housing programs. So there's a lot of money that Montebello would be missing out on for all sorts of other things beyond housing. The builder's remedy would go into effect immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you all have seen other examples. El Segundo, no. See it? So yes, so there's cities at Santa Monica actually. So when this law first passed, the first year of its inception, when it was enacted, Santa Monica, and there's another beach city, I believe it was El Segundo.
Huntington, wasn't it?
Well, they're later, but
Okay.
they fell out of compliance, and on day one, there were developers submitting plans to the city. And in Santa Monica, it was a huge issue. You can look it up. They were gonna build 13-story buildings in a very dense, single-family zone neighborhood. And that would have been permitted. Norwalk,
Did it happen?
huh?
Did it end up
So
happening,
they
or
were
was
able
it
to
just a
work with,
threat?
so they were able to work with the developers. So the city immediately, in Santa Monica's case, if I remember correctly, because I haven't been there in many years. But if I remember correctly, the city worked with the developers and they were able to get back into compliance and they were kind of able to rein some of those projects in. But a lot of those projects did go through.
13 stories.
But they were able to negotiate some changes to them.
The big thing, I think, is the staff too. Like, they're refusing, even though council's voting, and they're admittedly on video admitting that they will not come in to do anything more until the 7th cycle.
Which
And
isn't
why
until
did they wait?
2029.
Correct.
My
Yes.
question is, you know what always happens?
Always.
They wait till the last minute to say, here, shove this down your throat, you gotta do it.
We're,
They-
we're
you know-
always voting under an emergency, urgent situation, the
Last
sky is
minute.
falling, you have to pass
That
this.
is
They
It
asked for an
also-
extension for March,
Is
so
there
what happened
something-
before that?
Is there something that maybe, the council can write up that goes along with this, like the covenants? But something similar that says, we promise to look for other areas, the 317, and when it comes to the 7th,
We'll ask for that.
whatever.
Well,
Go ahead.
so on the last
Something
meeting.
legally-
Sorry, I apologize. I was gonna answer, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, something legally, that
Binding.
the city promises legally to, in good, well, not even in good faith, do it. Find 317 places, and by the 7th go-around here, whenever that's gonna be, that they go, okay, we found these places, it's gonna be replaced by the golf course. I mean, the golf course being replaced by these new places. And then it's documented and it's legal, just like Georgina's covenants.
That's
So-
what they.
So,
Yeah,
so what happened was, on the meeting that we had at City Hall, I was asking specifically is if there's a way that on the agenda, in the amendment, that we provide it to be that the minute they pass it to zone it, so we meet state compliance, the next day we go in to file for an exemption due to the documents to get exempted the next day, and then at the same time, the staff should look for another parcels that would meet compliance. As I said, I offered up Beverly Boulevard because we have 3 big lots that are vacant that I think could sustain the 320.
Well, I would encourage y'all to,
I just wanna say, if, once the state reviews the documents that were sent, and they say, oh my goodness, yes, you are exempt, we're gonna have to revise it anyways, and we'll be out of compliance because it was due by a certain amount of date.
Right.
So, somebody's gonna have to work with us, because if it in fact is, exempt, then we're still out of compliance. We're
Yes.
still out of compliance, and then you're saying they're gonna activate it, well, that's
Maybe
not
we
our
should have
fault.
used that parcel.
That's not our fault,
Yeah.
it's not our fault.
I will say I was a little not just a little, I was disappointed when we had the meeting with, the staff last week, because that was almost a month after our city council declined to rezone, they voted no. And I asked specifically what work has been done for looking to reallocate the shortfall. At that point in time, I was told, nothing, we're not looking at that until 2027, when we start the 7th cycle.
And Will said, why do we have to wait till the 7th cycle? Why can't you do it immediately as soon as they like start it right away? You know?
submit to be in compliance and then rework the issue.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my understanding at this point is if we do not vote to rezone, essentially, and I don't know who, but essentially, someone's saying, give them what they deserve, let them feel the wrath of it.
and
Our city
I will
manager.
say, and I could
believe
speak
me,
to.
that's exactly what's gonna happen.
I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure you all have seen what happened to the city of Norwalk recently. So I will.
Our city attorney is their city attorney.
Does that tell you much?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I'll say.
He was also in Huntington Park before the feds came in.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, I wanted to come hear what the issues were, and then also that way I can, when we speak to our our city partners, we can relay some of the concerns that you have directly to them.
Get your email to
I
Will
will.
and
I got it.
Corey, so that they can forward you the deed.
I got it, I'm gonna set it up tonight with them, we'll
Oh,
be
you got
meeting.
it.
I do
And this
wanna-
way you'll have a copy of property. Look, this is their property.
We
But I-
were just also made aware today that right now, starting at 6 o'clock, the council member from District 2 is hosting a town hall at City Hall with some locals that are gonna be most directly impacted by that area. I don't know if you're available to head there and listen in on any of that either, but it's
Are you
happening
were
right now.
included?
I'm learning about it right now.
See,
as well.
and you should have been included because, you know, you're a representative.
But those forums.
If they were
are-
above board,
But
you would
those
have been
forums are
included.
really important for constituents like yourselves, so you'll make your voices heard. And you know, we tend to get the video afterwards or get the recording if we're not able to attend.
That's if they're recording.
They-
Because they're in the other rooms, they're not recording them.
No.
So that's why I always bring something to record so we can have.
I don't think you have to introduce yourself if you wanna introduce yourself and if you have the opinion, just because I think fairly new to the.
I am fairly new. My name is Amelia Alvarez. I've been a resident for Montebello, 29 years. You know, unfortunately, I hear all the back and forth with respect to being out of compliance. Well, we should have looked for the properties years ago. I think I remember bringing this issue up as far as like the scout list specifically for us 3 years ago when I contacted you.
She's a lion also.
Yeah, I'm also a lion. 3 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and if that property up there on the north side was in question, it's like, why haven't they, what have they done in the past couple of years not to look for other locations? I mean, here in Montebello, we have open space, so why aren't we utilizing it? That north side area is so congested, it is awful. To get off that off-ramp on Garfield, it took me almost 30 minutes, and I live a mile away from there. It's
It's
incredible.
really horrible. If you guys ever get a chance, go drive there in the mornings on a weekday or weeknight during traffic time.
Oh my God.
It's
Garfield?
Garfield,
Off the
Via
off-ramp.
Campo, and Pomona.
Garfield and Via Campo.
That's what we-
Okay.
So out from there.
And then to go home, we gotta go through the Garfield corridor to the city.
The worst thing that could ever happen is the builder's eminent, that they
Which-
take over.
which is-
We don't want ever that to happen, ever.
Which
So
is
we-
why I would, you know, I'm just here to let y'all know that, you know, we will be having a conversation with our city partners to relay what we've heard today. You know, ask them kind of what's the next steps are. I know there's a city council meeting on Wednesday. But I also wanna let y'all know just a couple of realities from the state that I think it's key to know. You know, the state itself was looking at a shortfall of 2 million homes, excuse me. LA County, it's 500,000. So this legislature, including this governor, these are the things he wants. He wants to build housing. So cities that don't meet that compliance have been prosecuted by the California Department of Justice. Attorney General Bonta's office has been pretty active in that. However, that's why I'm here to tell y'all to please engage your city officials. Go to the meetings. There's a city council, like I said, there's one tonight. There's also a city council meeting on Wednesday. These are key forums to make sure your voices are heard, and we will too relay your concerns to the city manager's office, to planning. Just
So one of the things that's gonna happen is, and I've heard it and I won't say where, is people are gonna start voting Republican. I mean, I've heard it from our constituents that have said, if that's what the governor wants, and the next governors to come are about that, we're not gonna vote Democrat. This is a Democratic state, and I'm gonna tell you, they're not gonna vote for that reason. Take that very clear, whether it's for governor, assembly, senate, council. They have a lot to lose. Folks are really upset. I understand that this is what California wants, or that governor, he's out in November. I think everybody here is counting the days.
I mean, if you really think about it, the two front runners are Republicans in a governor race in California. That should let the representatives know. Yep.
The two front runners are Republicans.
I'm gonna have to ask the drinks before I.
Same question.
I won't. I won't go
So
there.
one of the things that I think I brought up at City Hall, but just touched on it really quickly, is I'm noticing in my neighborhood, the houses that are being sold even now, They're converting them. Some have, I think one down the block had 7 units in it, right? So I don't know when our city, or if our city in recent times has done kind of like a polling or a study to see, you know, how many other supplemental ADU, junior ADU units are included, because we may already be at the 327 mark.
Yeah, cause they're building them.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I would love, you know, for them to consider, because there should be somebody actively going out and trying to take accounting of that, because 327 is a really small shortfall.
317, yeah.
317 is a very small shortfall, so.
And you brought that up already though, so
I
you've already,
did.
you
So I just
brought
wanna
that up
keep
to
on,
the-
like,
No, I'm
saying-
you brought it up to the city, there was, like, did you
And
get a
then there'll be no
response?
action.
And there's these major corporations coming in and buying up all the single-family homes.
Yep.
For that purpose.
That's huge
Well, you know
right
what
now.
too? My neighbor may be aware, right up the hill from her, they had one of these sober living places in the middle of Rocket Mountain One. And there's only supposed to be 6 residents there. There were 20 men living there. So I called up Columbia and said, hey, how can they have, he goes, thank your governor for that. Think I wasn't pissed at the governor? Putting that in the middle of the neighborhood? And I live in front of a park. And then I find out there's another one down the street on Lincoln. And they're in the middle of family neighborhoods. And these are drug rehab places and alcohol. I mean, these are convicts. I don't care what they say. These are people that are let out and, halfway houses. In our neighborhood?
Yeah, San Pedro's
That's
having
not
the same
acceptable.
problem.
But guess what? The governor said it is. So what are we stuck with? So like she said, I'm disgusted with him. And I will, anybody that wants to run against him for president, I will even lobby for a Republican. I will not let that man destroy the country like he did California.
I think we said everything. I know your time is valuable.
Yes, thank you.
So
Thank you very
anything
much.
else?
Well, if you have any
Sorry.
suggestions on what we
Yeah.
can do to protect that property, we'd like to hear it.
Mhm.
I mean, in the immediate, because you are up against the clock here.
So we have to rezone, but will you advocate for us to show them that this property is not a normal piece of property?
So what we're gonna be doing is gonna be talking to the city tomorrow. Like I said, I was already speaking to them earlier today, just getting a little bit of background, but my goal now that I've spoken to y'all and I have questions and we've been taking notes, is to kind of submit them to the city and say, hey, look, these are the concerns. This is what they would like to see, this is what they would like seen. Because oftentimes in a big meeting, especially a city council meeting, sometimes things get lost or, certain requests. So we're gonna make sure that they get seen, by the city. But I really, really would encourage y'all in very good faith to work with the city on this.
Okay, so
Because,
may I ask you a question?
yes,
Would you ask this question to the city manager? Knowing that that property was bequeathed to the city, it's not a normal parcel, why did you even consider it?
He
Why
didn't.
didn't you look for other parcels?
I'm gonna be fair on this. He didn't. That was Renee Bobadilla.
It was Bobadilla.
It was Bobadilla. It was in 2022. He did not come until later. So I don't want to blame who's not there. Now, why is he pushing it? Now, that's the real question I have. Why is he so adamant about that specific site? But is it okay when we send an email if I CC the group so this way they could all see it as well? That it's gone to you, or do you prefer individual?
that's totally fine. You could send,
Yeah, and I will say to your point regarding that piece of parcel, the city responded earlier today, or Jim Columbia responded earlier today with a different deed saying everything was bought and paid for, there are no additional claims, and we're all good. But that was regarding the 19 acres that were purchased, that were fully paid for. The ones that had been gifted to us had been gifted with the other and had been documented and recorded with the, must be used for recreational purposes or revert back. So, but in the city, and I heard what Raul Alvarez told me to my face was, we don't believe that there are any, still lingering things regarding that property because we were able to do other things with it. And then as evidenced, it was provided with this, we're all good, there's no claims left. So that's their stance, is that the property is bought and paid for and they can do what they want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Best
Appreciate it.
cookie.